There are people who should not have made it. By every reasonable measure, the circumstances they were born into, the obstacles placed in front of them, the number of times the ground gave way beneath them, they should have stopped. Most people would have stopped. Most people did stop in similar situations, and nobody blamed them for it. But these people did not stop. And the question worth asking is not whether they were lucky, or talented, or born with something the rest of us were not. The real question is what was happening inside them, psychologically, neurologically, at the level of how their mind processed failure, that made stopping feel less possible than continuing. Because the research on resilience has found something that most people find uncomfortable. Rising is not a character trait. It is a cognitive pattern. And it operates completely differently in certain people than it does in everyone else. Here is the first difference. Most people experience failure as information about themselves. They tried something, it did not work, and somewhere below conscious thought, the brain files this as evidence. Evidence about their ability, their worthiness, their realistic prospects. The failure becomes part of the story they tell about who they are. And once it is in that story, it shapes every decision that follows. The people who rise no matter what process failure differently. For them, failure is information about the attempt, not about themselves. The thing did not work. That thing, that approach, that timing, that version. Not them. They extract what is useful from the failure, discard the rest, and move to the next attempt carrying less weight than they arrived with. This is not positive thinking. This is a fundamentally different cognitive architecture, one that keeps identity and outcome in separate categories that most people, without realizing it, have collapsed into one. The second difference is their relationship with time. People who rise no matter what tend to operate on a longer timeline than the people around them. When something fails, they do not calculate their losses against this month or this year. They calculate against a timeline that extends further than most people are willing to look. This makes short-term failure feel less fatal, because on a long enough timeline, most failures are not endpoints. They are redirections. This longer timeline also changes their relationship with discomfort. When you are building towards something 10 years away, the discomfort of today is simply the cost of tomorrow. It is not a signal that something is wrong. It is evidence that something is happening. The third difference is the most counterintuitive. The people who rise no matter what are not the ones who never break down. They are the ones who break down completely and then get up anyway. Not because they are stronger, because they have developed, through repeated experience, an absolute certainty that getting up is possible. They have done it before. They know what it feels like to be at the bottom, and then to not be at the bottom anymore. And that knowledge, that specific, embodied, experiential knowledge, becomes the foundation that makes the next collapse survivable before it even arrives. This is why people who have overcome significant adversity early in life often become almost unstoppable later. Not despite the early difficulty. Because of it, the adversity installed something, a proof of concept, a lived demonstration that collapse is not permanent, that people who have never been tested simply do not have access to. The fourth thing is identity before outcome. People who rise consistently have decided who they are before the evidence is in. They do not wait to succeed before considering themselves someone who succeeds. The identity comes first. The outcomes follow, not always quickly, not always cleanly, but consistently over time, because behavior follows identity, and when your identity is non-negotiable, your behavior becomes non-negotiable too. This sounds simple. It is not. Most people construct their identity from the evidence available to them. And when the evidence is mostly failure, mostly struggle, mostly doors that did not open, the identity that forms reflects that evidence. Changing it requires deciding to be someone before you have proof that you are, and holding that decision against every piece of contradicting evidence the world sends back. The people who rise no matter what are doing exactly that. Every day. Often without anyone watching. Now here is what the research does not say, and what this video will not say. It will not say that anyone who wants it badly enough will get it. Circumstances are real. Structural barriers are real. Some people carry weights that no psychological reframe can fully lift, and pretending otherwise is not inspiring. It is dishonest. What the research does say is this. Among people facing equivalent circumstances, equivalent obstacles, equivalent starting points, equivalent difficulty, the ones who rise share a specific set of cognitive patterns, not talents, not gifts, patterns, ways of processing failure, measuring time, constructing identity, and relating to discomfort that are different from the people who stop. And patterns, unlike talent, can be examined, can be understood, can, with enough deliberate effort, be changed. The people who rise no matter what are not a different species. They are people who, somewhere along the way, through difficulty or decision or both, learned to process the experience of being stopped in a way that made stopping feel like the harder option. Most of them will tell you they had no choice. What they mean is that they had already decided, before the obstacle, before the failure, before the ground gave way, who they were going to be on the other side of it. The decision came first. Everything else followed.